The whole squad on the mission, you got to listen. We PoPolitickin, it's so dope when it kick in. You can get in where you fit in. We straight PoPolitickin. The whole squad on the mission, you got to listen. You know what this is when we PoPolitickin. My money long like division, I proposition to put a fist in. We straight PoPolitickin. Hey yo, I rise like the sun in the east, running the streets. Same people that was coming in peace, some in the beast on the microphone. It's never a long and hard task. For God, I'm gonna smash they blog and podcast. Introduction to journalism 101 with Pharaoh PoPolitickin about where I'm from and what I do. What's up? It gotta be good. Interviewing everybody, you know they probably could. Take all the blood, sweat, and tears, working all them years. Putting in 10,000 hours, it empowers careers. From the baby and Megan Thee Stallion to Yo Gotti. High as a kite, jet life, currency in the party. With MC Light, J Prince said I rap a lot. Super Saiyan Black Kakarot with a Macintosh laptop in my Apple Watch. Smoking Fraggle Rocks, 4 eyes, got more lines and hooks than a tackle box. What? The whole squad on the mission, you got to listen. We PoPolitickin, it's so dope when it kick in. You can get in where you fit in. We straight PoPolitickin. The whole squad on the mission, you got to listen. You know what this is when we PoPolitickin. My money long like division, I proposition to put a fist in. We straight PoPolitickin.
And you know what came to my head when I was watching you?
What's that?
That I know you bopping your head because I can see.
Oh, I didn't know I was still on the camera. I was like, yo, man, this thing slaps right here.
Yeah, that's the homie 4 Eyes. That's the homie. He cool with Ludacris homie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so welcome back to PoPolitickin.com, your home for self-help beats hip-hop. Right now we're live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Check me out on Spotify, Apple Music. 1212, I'm a place to be with Jamahl Kersey. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing well. I'm blessed, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, I had to get you on, man. My homie Chris told me to holler at you. He said you're a lawyer and a DJ.
That's right. So I do criminal defense and immigration work. So I've been in practice for over a decade now. I run Kersey Law. So I got the T if that comes out, boom, Kersey Law. And then I DJ, get in where I can doing hip hop. I hear that boom bap. So, that's my lane right there. So, late 90s, early 90s hip hop, do some R&B nowadays, reggaeton, you gotta play to your crowds and everything. But yeah, man, I've been loving and digging music since I was a child, man. Come up doing music in the church. So, you know how that goes.
Man, I was like, I think you should rap too. Cause that'll be like the best thing if you're a lawyer and you rap, and you just rap about like lawyer stuff.
Know thyself, man. I don't think rapping is in the cards for me. But I guess never say never, right?
Yeah, tight. You say what kind of so what started first? I'm pretty sure you was probably DJ before you was a lawyer, or which one came first?
No, actually, so music just in general came first. So, grew up in the church, shout out to my Second Missionary Baptist Church family out in Oceanside. But yeah, music came first, came up singing in the choir, doing all that stuff, doing the little skits and speeches and all that kind of stuff. And so eventually when I could do music classes in school, I started playing instruments. So first instrument was the cello. You had to do string instruments before you could do wind instruments. So I did strings and then moved into wind instruments. And then my main passion was the drums. So once I got into drums, that was, that's when I really, really, really fell in love with playing music. And so I actually played music through high school. And after high school, I actually taught drums. So I taught drums at a middle school, which was dope because I was about 18 years old and I was working with, one of my best friends. And so we were working together, with the kids, middle school age children. So really we were like a big brother, even like a father figure to some of these kids while being able to share our love of music with these kids. It was a real special moment. And to this day, I still have, relationships with some of those students. So, but after that, basically, this was around the time when I was 19, 20, and I still had some of those music dreams, like what could I do in music? Could I start doing studio work? Could I, form a band or what have you, but Pops kind of stepped in and was like, yo, you need to do something that because DJ wasn't even in the picture at this point in my 20s, although it was something that I always would have wanted to do. But realistically, being able to afford turntables and mixers and speakers and all that, that the money just wasn't there, you know what I'm saying? And so
I was gonna ask you, what did your parents do?
So my pops was in the military. He retired from the military, and then my mom.
That's how you was Oceanside?
That's right. Well, we just kind of landed in Oceanside because my grandfather on my mother's side lived there. So when my parents split, my mom was trying to sort of scramble and figure out what she was going to do. So we were in Skyline for a hot one, and then ended up in Oceanside staying with my grandparents. My grandfather was a pastor at Second Missionary Baptist Church. So, so that's how we ended up there. But but yeah, my dad was like, listen, man, I know you have these music dreams, but at some point, you're going to have to do something that's actually going to put some, food on the table. If you end up, getting married or starting your own family, you got to have something stable. And so followed that advice, finished up college, which is a whole nother story in and of itself. But I went to law school, graduated from law school, was doing my thing. And for 10 years, actually 20 years, I wasn't doing anything within music. And, there was just a hole in my soul because I wasn't expressing myself creatively. And so when you come up playing music every day, literally every day of your life from, being a kid up through high school and then teaching music, you're in a music room and doing that. And then for all of a sudden it just to cut off, that was rough. So then actually one of the homies, and that's why I love social media, for all that people say is bad about it, it's been such a blessing to me, not only in promoting, my DJ career, but my law career, but what opened the door to me being a DJ, because it's only been a couple of years, to be honest with you. The homie Rick Scales, so local rapper, one of my favorite MCs.
We know Rick Scales. Rick Scales.
Yeah.
I've been knowing Rick for a long time.
Word. So Rick had posted that Artistic was doing classes. And so I was like, yo, I need to jump up on this because I've been wanting to DJ forever, so I linked up with Artistic. He basically showed me, Serato and everything. It's a little different for me because, I wasn't coming in fresh. Like I've been playing music my whole life, you know what I mean? So it was just a matter of picking up the mechanics of what I was doing. And then I just kind of ran with it, and he put me on. So I was doing gigs, I was doing little parties, I was doing weddings, I was doing then got into night spots, so playing at different spots down here in San Diego and downtown and everything. And then obviously the pandemic hit, so that kind of had a nice little steam going. It was crazy because I had lawyer colleagues hitting me up like, yo, do you still practice law? Are you an attorney? Because, you look at my Instagram feed for a while, it was just poster here, poster there, poster here, poster there. I was just playing,
But even with that, though, like, you can't really say that. Like, I hear them, but they can't really say that no more because you got, like, celebrity DJs all the time now. Like, yeah, like, everybody DJ now, so it's more like,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people, no matter what you do, they always want to put you in a box. You know what I mean? Like you can only be one thing, but I've always been a dynamic, multifaceted person. I can move in different circles. I have different tastes. I have different, parts of me. I'm a Gemini, so I don't really play too much into the zodiac signs and everything, but when it comes to having those different facets, that definitely plays into who I am.
I gotta show you something. You know who John McAfee is?
No, I don't.
He just died. He the one that
the security dude.
Yeah. So I was just like researching him, and he lived a bugged out life. So he was like a yoga teacher for like 20 years. So I had just got one of his yoga books. And he was saying, like, man, he was saying that too. He was like, when people say who I am, Like, you don't gotta define yourself by just one thing. Like, shit, we
Right.
should be able to do, like, especially like if you're a Renaissance man, like you're supposed to be doing just more than one thing. But like,
Yeah.
I don't even like putting on, you know, how LinkedIn when you said when somebody put what they are, I don't like putting my job title in there.
Right.
No,
No,
it's like,
I feel you on that. There was a point where I stopped telling people I was a lawyer. I'd be out at the night spots, you know what I mean, and meet somebody, you know, and you know, meet a girl or what have you, and you'd be like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, yo, I race dirt bikes, you know what I mean? Like, I just didn't even want, because people have all these preconceived notions of who you're gonna be based on what it is that you quote unquote do for a living, and I just didn't want to be defined by anything, or even there came a point, and I grew to understand it, right? Because, you know, I represent my people, whether, you know, my people from Dago, my people from Oceanside, they're happy to see that, you know, I came from where I came from and I'm at where I'm at. So, you know, when I would get introduced, it'd be like, yo, this is Jamahl, he's a lawyer. And I got tired of that, because I was like, yo, what if I was, you know, Jamahl the garbage man, or, you know, Jamahl the you know what I mean, like, you know, the ticket taker. You know, I had that job before. Like, what if that's where I stayed at? Like, you know, you shouldn't treat me any differently just because I have a couple degrees on my wall. But then I removed my ego from it, and I was like, yo, if my people want to celebrate who I am and who I've become, and realize that they see some of me in them, and them in me, then I'll ride with it. So but yeah, I really don't put any value really in titles, man. You do what you do, whether, you know, especially when it comes to my practice. And, you know, I've represented doctors and physicians all the way down to, you know, and I don't even want to say down to, but, you know, across the way, from construction workers, or, you know, cooks and what have you. And I treat them all the same, because, again, like, titles mean, you know, jack to me. I don't know if I can curse. I feel like, a title don't mean shit to me, man. Like, you know, it really is how you treat people. Huh?
No, it's like my favorite part of the whole show. My favorite part of the show is when people be like, man, I don't know if I can cuss. That
reminds me. I don't know if you've seen Big's last freestyle. There's a freestyle where he's at the end, and he's like, and he's actually muting himself, which is crazy. Like, they didn't even have to use, you know, a censor button. He was muting himself. He's like, yo, man, I want to curse, and they was like, go ahead. Then he did a freestyle over that Mob Deep beat. It's crazy. And then when he ends his verse, he's like, you're nobody till somebody kills you. And you're like, damn. And yeah, it's crazy.
So what have you learned about being a lawyer? Like, what has it taught you? How has it changed?
You know, I mean, I've learned a lot, man, just from, you know, how to think like a lawyer. So I have a legal mind now, you know, and that's something that can't really be reversed. But I've gotten to learn, I've gotten to know people on a very intimate level, having them tell me things that you wouldn't never usually tell a perfect stranger, but because you have to. So, you know, sometimes the intimate details about your life might be central to your defense. So you got to be forthcoming. But realistically, that's a gift from God that I've had since I was a child. There's just been some sort of rapport that I've been able to establish with people, and I have this calming presence such that people will, you know, I'll be in conversation with people and they'll be like, I can't believe I'm telling you this, you know, but blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, you know, I've kind of heard that, you know, thousands of times over my lifetime. So, you know, just getting to know people and how people think and human nature and all that kind of stuff. But I've also, you know, because I run my own business, I've learned, you know, the ins and outs of how to run a business. I've had to, you know, learn how to market. I had to learn how to sell and how to sell well, how to sell ethically. You know, I've learned how to manage people, how to hire people, how to let people go. There's all kinds of hard and soft skills that I've developed over the years in my practice. So that's you know, somewhat broad, but if you have a more specific thing in terms of what I may have learned, you know, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, then I know I was going back to John McAfee. Like, he just got annoyed at the end. Like, he always had guns and security with him, And then, he was all into that security, and he was just like,
Yeah.
you can't trust nobody. He's like, you can't trust anybody. So then that kind of got me thinking. So how do you feel like, what do you think about trust?
Trust. I keep a relatively small circle. I'm not gonna say that whole no new friends. Everybody posts that Drake line, no new friends. Like, nah, I mean, you need to eventually develop new friends and new connections in order to get, where it is that you need to go. Once you've defined where it is that you need to go, a lot of people have no idea where they're going. And so, they're just kind of drifting through life. But trust is an important thing. I mean, it's something that develops over time, obviously. And I think, you need to, when you see that you cannot trust with somebody, because people tend to tell you and or show you who they are. And I think you have to really listen to that instead of, trying to be idealistic in terms of what you would want them to be or who you would want them to be or who you could see them become. But yeah, trust is important. I trust, I've entrusted employees with my business. I've entrusted my heart to women over the years. I've entrusted my, innermost thoughts and feelings to, close homies who, I can do that with. Not everybody is worthy of that, but yeah, trust is important. And I think as you develop yourself and you be a good person who is trustworthy, then you will attract people who are trustworthy, man. If you grimy, if you're doing shady stuff, then that's who you're gonna attack. That's who you're gonna attract, and that's the energy that you're gonna have around you. So I only keep trustworthy people around me. So I don't know what it's like to just be rolling with a circle of homies that you can't trust. Like, nah, I don't get down like that.
And then what would you want the people to know about just cause I was watching your YouTube channel, I see you got a lot of informational videos. So what would you want the people to know about their rights, just in general? Like, what should they know?
Man,
I know that's a question though.
No, I've been talking about the whole rights thing because, to be honest with you, I came up, in a community. I grew up on the East Side, and we had East Side Crips, we had the Mexican Pozole gang, and it was active, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of people think of Oceanside, I guess, because of the name Oceanside, and they don't think like things really get down. But nah, I mean,
I live in the valley.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oceanside is active, but the issue is that so many of us, aren't familiar with our rights. You know what I mean? Like, and I was very upset when I was 27 years old, 26, 27 years old, sitting up in these law classes and really for the first time getting to know my rights, getting to know that, that I really had a right to remain silent. And it wasn't just a line that you hear on movies and TV. Like, nah, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And they do that. You know what I mean? When you sit up and watch the first 48 and you see people consistently just going ahead and giving up their constitutional rights to remain silent and burying themselves with their statements. Like, and it's not about being evasive. It's not about, being a criminal, because I'll post stuff like that and you get response like, oh, why are you trying to educate criminals and all that kind of stuff? I'm like, nah, this is literally in the Constitution. Like, you have the right to remain silent, and the reason you have it is because if the government and all its resources is trying to say that you committed a crime, if they're putting allegations against you, it's their burden. It's their burden to prove it. It's not your burden to prove your innocence. It's not your burden to really say anything. It's like, if you're saying I did this, all right, prove it then. And you don't have to contribute to, you don't have to do the detective's jobs for them. You don't have to do the DA's jobs for them. So, I really just think that, people need to have an intimate understanding of their rights so they can know what they can and cannot do. And again, it's not about, teaching people to be criminals, or it's not about, people being lawless. It's just about knowing your rights. I mean, that's just something that people should know. And so, to the extent I can, I've been trying to use my platform to educate people. And so I'm doing that as far as the law. And then I'm also doing it as far as just life advice, man. I feel extremely blessed. I've had so many wonderful people do some amazing things for me. I've definitely been touched by God's grace. At the same time, I'm a grinder, man. I'm a hustler. I will work my tail off until the day I die. But throughout that journey, man, I've read a bunch of books. I've studied. I've done a lot of self work, and I just know a lot. I've got a lot of knowledge that now at this point has become wisdom, and I just feel a necessity, a duty, an obligation to share that. So that's the information that I'm putting out.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say, because I feel like with law, they make it like kind of dry, so it's kind of hard to learn sometimes. That's why I think it's been this, especially for like us. So they make it real dry, and it's like it's just the way they do it. They make it hard to learn.
Yeah, and on some level, it I suppose it has to be that way. But on another level, it doesn't. And so in any way that I can take a complex subject and make it relatable, make it understandable, so you don't have to do 4 years of undergrad and 3 years of law school and pass a bar in order to understand your rights and in order to understand how the law works. If I can educate you on that, and that's what I do for my clients. A lot of times, like they're surprised and blown away by how far I go to educate them. Because sometimes they're like, oh man, well, I have this stupid question, or I know you're busy and I don't want to bug you, but how does this work? Or can you explain this? I'm like, yo, that's my job. It's part of my job to educate you and help you understand what it is that you're facing and what your rights are and what the defenses are that are available to you and everything. So, it's something that I actually love to do, because I originally went to school to teach. So I was going to be a teacher, and I actually taught criminal law at Southwestern College down here in San Diego. So, being in the classroom is really one of my first loves. But yeah, so that's why, if I can use my platform again to educate people on their rights and make them feel more empowered, knowing that they know their rights, knowing that they know what they can and cannot do, what the government can and can't do. So the other day I was talking about on TikTok about whether a cop can search your house or your car, and the Fourth Amendment says we're to be free from unreasonable search and seizure, which means a warrant has to they have to have a warrant which bases on probable cause in order to search your house or your car. And so if a cop asks you can I search your house or your car, well, let me see your warrant, because there's a few exceptions where they can do it anyway, but those are pretty limited. And so, but if you grant them consent, what's that?
I had one time what happened to me, I was a manager, and they the company tried to search my phone, and it was my personal phone. It wasn't the company phone.
Yeah.
Right. And then they was telling me this dude was our lawyer, like he was my lawyer. And I'm like, this ain't my lawyer, it's the company lawyer. So
right.
My boy, my homie Jeff, he was a lawyer. So I asked him about that phone. I was like, yo, man, they trying to search my phone. He was like, hell no. It was like when Brady, you remember when Brady broke his shit when they was trying to check his phone for that Yeah, it was right when that happened too. So he was like, hell no, I'm gonna check your phone, tell them that's your personal property. So they was trying to but if you don't know no better, you know what I'm saying? Just hand your shit over. Here you go.
Right. And that happens a lot, people getting either bullied by cops or even getting, smooth talked by cops and just giving up their rights. You know what I mean? Because, just to finish what I was going to say is if you give them consent, then they don't need a warrant anymore. So if they're like, oh, can we come in and search your house? And you're like, okay, sure. Go on right ahead. Then they can do that. But if they don't have that warrant and you don't give them consent, you just be like, all right, man, if you're going to get your warrant, you go ahead and get it. But I'm not just going to waive my rights. I'm not just going to give up my rights, and make your job easier. But again, and it's not about having anything to hide or anything like that. It's just about, this is what my rights are, and I'm going to assert my rights, and I'm not going to be disrespectful. That you don't need to bring that energy to the situation, especially if you look like us. But at the end of the day, yes, and empowered people should have an intimate knowledge of their rights. And so, me knowing what I know and me being in the position that I'm in, I definitely have an obligation to do that. So I give talks whenever I can. I'll do. So the Earl B. Gilliam Bar Association, which is the African American collective of lawyers here in San Diego, we do something called neighborhood law school. And so, they have different topics. So they'll do landlord tenant, they'll do, criminal defense, they'll do employment rights. So and people come through and they have their notebooks and everything, so they can be educated. We have that obligation, man. Like we're in a special position to be educated in the law. So we have that duty to give that information back. So I try and do that whenever I can.
So, and then I want to talk about one of your videos because I saw the video you did about Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
So can you just give us a cliff note of what you were saying just for the listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, and when I saw the news, I mean, I was like, oh, what? how he get out? But it's that he's not innocent. All right, so let's just get that out of the way. Bill Cosby is not innocent. What happened was the Supreme Court basically said that that particular DA's office violated his due process rights when they went ahead and filed charges that was based on in part on certain statements that he gave. So going back, back in 2005. The police were investigating Cosby based on sexual assault allegations, right? So what happens is when the police investigate activities, so say they're doing an investigation based on somebody reporting something, so that with a sexual assault case, that's usually what happens. Oh, so and so did this to me, what have you. So they're doing their investigation. Once they get everything that they're going to have, so any statements, videos, photographs, DNA, what have you, they turn that over to the DA's office, and there's a DA that's assigned to the case who's going to go through, and they're going to look and see, okay, is there anything that I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt? And if so, then they'll charge the person with whatever they think they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. If they don't think they can prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt because of lack of evidence or lack of credibility with respect to the alleged victim, then they can decline to file charges. And that's what happened in this case. I don't know the intimate details in terms of why they decided not to file, but I do believe that they there was some witness credibility issues with the alleged victim.
I'll say who you mean by they?
The DA.
Oh, okay.
So the DA, when they reviewed the case, I believe the alleged victim had some credibility issues, and so the DA at that point felt, okay, well, we can't prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, so we're not going to file charges. So around the same time, that alleged victim ended up filing a civil suit. So when you file a civil suit, you're suing somebody for money. So she was suing him for however much she was suing him for the sexual assault. The DA at that point basically made the decision like, listen, if we can't prosecute this guy, I at least want to get this woman paid. So what we'll do is we'll create an agreement to where we'll tell you, Mr. Cosby, we're not going to prosecute you. So then that would give him the incentive to testify in the civil case, because otherwise, if you're facing criminal charges, you wouldn't testify in a civil case, because they could eventually use that, right, that testimony to prosecute you. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he would have ended up pleading the fifth if they would have deposed him, if they would have taken his deposition. So the DA was like, all right, well, here's this agreement. We're not going to prosecute you, so that he could then, testify in the deposition, and then, the woman would get paid. I don't know what happened with that, if she got paid or not, or what have you. But 10 years later, so in 2015, changing of the guard, new DAs in place, they were like, well, we don't care about whatever agreement you reached with the DA. We're going to file this anyway. That, obviously that wasn't words, but that's the gist of what happened. They said, okay, well, we have this information. He testified in a deposition. He admitted that, he would, drug women that he wanted to have sex with, and all other kind of details. And so they used that information in 2015 to then prosecute him. And again, these are the same facts that in 2005 they had concluded that there wasn't sufficient evidence. But the difference was in 2015 he had already testified under oath about what he was doing. So they moved forward, and the case went all the way up to trial. And in between them charging the case and him, going to trial, you can imagine there's all kinds of motions filed by the defense, like, no, we need to throw this out. This is unfair. This is a violation of his rights. But, they just pushed it. They just pushed it through anyway. He gets convicted. He then appeals. That appeal got denied. And then that's when it went to the Philadelphia Supreme Court, or the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court basically said, nah, DA, you can't you can't promise somebody that you're not going to prosecute them, just to get them to then testify and then use that testimony against them in, 10 years later. That's just a violation of due process. And so in the end, I mean, because people ask me, what do you think? Like, did the court get the right result? And I say, yeah, I mean, that's what should have happened in terms of, that ruling. But realistically, that case should have never been filed in 2015 in the first place. But that's not me signing off on Cosby's conduct. That's not me saying that he's innocent. There's a lot of ignorance out there in terms of people saying, "Oh man, this dude's innocent." Like, nah, he's not innocent.
I'm saying, what you think about Your Honor, Judge Joe Brown? What he was saying about him? You heard? Did you watch that?
I didn't hear what Joe Brown said. I to be honest with you, man, I'm in the trenches every day, man. I'm in and out of jails, visiting my clients and filing documents, and in court, and meeting with clients and doing all kinds of stuff. I don't. It's difficult to stay up with the legal cases that are going on, but one thing I will say is I didn't like how they had the press conference when Cosby first got released, and it sounded like a civil rights rally, like, yo, nah.
I mean, like, now he's down with the black people again.
Yeah,
he's always talking shit about black people. So.
Yeah. Plus, that was something that really turned a lot of folks against him when he took that. That high condescending stance towards the black community. And so, a lot of folks weren't rocking with Bill Cosby anymore. So, but either way, I don't think it's a celebration of him, or a celebration of black rights or anything like that. But it is the right result in terms of, Constitution and due process and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I know you say you're in the trenches, but so do you keep track of anything with it's three of them I'll be keeping up with, like the Epstein case, R. Kelly, and then Nipsey Hussle's case. Do you keep track of any of those?
Well, I mean, I watched the Epstein documentary. That was about it on Netflix, to see, the details of that. And then obviously, the very peculiar circumstances around him losing his life, and we'll see what ends up happening with Maxwell. But that, apparently there's a lot of people who have a lot to lose. A lot of famous and powerful people who are, out on that island. So we'll see what happens with that. But my opinion, probably is more on a personal level than a legal level, and I just think it's disgusting. What it is that they had going on, and it just goes to show, how much money and power is unnecessarily valued here in America, and I suppose in other countries as well. But that idea that you can just do whatever it is that you want to do because you have some commas, that's something that really disgusts me, man. But in terms of R. Kelly, I haven't really been up on that one, but I do want to dive into it because I know that there was some controversy about his release. About them not releasing him from custody, and there was the complaints about him being detained during COVID and everything.
I got to my church. Hey, you didn't watch Survivor R. Kelly?
I did. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, that shit was wild.
It was wild. I mean, what was the trip was that winning cures everything. And when you're winning, whether it's on a football field, a basketball court, or in the studio, or on the charts, obviously he was doing some grimy stuff, man. But as long as them hits kept coming out, it didn't matter. And I'll tell you, man, we in our high school church choir, we sang "I Believe I Can Fly," man. That Kels had impact and on the inspirational tip in the club, just one of the greatest vocalists, in the history of music, and just a life, generational talent. But you also see, the defense attorney hat. I'm always looking at, mitigating circumstances, mitigating factors, and I feel terribly that that he was violated as a child. And you see how, and there's this saying that hurt people, right? So hurt people, happy people make other people happy. And it's not a justification, it's at all, because no matter what our past is, no matter what we've been through, our traumas, we have a responsibility as human beings to do what we need to do to right our wrongs, so we don't then go and hurt other people. But it is something that has to be taken into consideration. I don't know what that is like, but I imagine that there is a whole world of trauma and pain and ugliness that comes along with that having happened to you. And so it's something that has to be taken into consideration. But yeah, man, like that whole thing of wanting to go and hang out at the high schools and all that kind of stuff, that was just weird. And you hear a lot of celebrities outside of that documentary talking about, like, yeah, Kels will want to come through and with little girls and all that kind of stuff. It's like, whoa, man, that's some crazy stuff. And so you were asking me about trust earlier. If you have a real circle of real people, I don't see how you can just sit up and condone that and sign off on that, basically. Right. And I get it, like, everyone's got to live, and I'm sure. Well, I know a lot of folks was eating off of Kels, but nah. I mean, again, it goes back to that value of money thing. Like, how much is money worth to you that you'll allow these things to go on and you not say something about it, or you not do something about it? It's an ugly situation. And so, yeah, that's crazy. Plus the whole that interview with Gayle King.
That interview was funny. I just be watching it just to watch it sometimes. That shit's funny.
Robert.
Boy, Keenan killed him though. Keenan did that.
Yeah. Right. Call me victim. It's like, I'm not gonna call you victim. Robert, victim.
So you keep what about the Nipsey Hussle case? Because I ain't been hearing nothing about that one. Last thing I saw, now they talking about they might try little boy on mental insanity.
That's another one that I'm not really aware of, but one, all these different cases are intriguing, as is just all aspects of criminal law. And then obviously when you're dealing with celebrities, it makes it all the more interesting. But I think it's a sad thing that all of our young stars go so young, and that's like the bigger picture thing. I mean, rest in peace to Nipsey. And I'm sure that loss is still being felt in LA and is still being felt in the hip hop community. But his death is indicative of a bigger picture thing in terms of not seeing the value in each other as brothers and sisters as we should. When you think about the statistics in terms of how cheap a life is, where you can go so far as to feel like you can, in your mind justifiably take the life of somebody else who looks like you. We collectively have a deep wound of lack of collective self-esteem in who we are, and lack of love of who we are as a people that needs to be healed, and that's for a reason. I mean, and this is what upsets me when you hear people talk about, okay, slavery happened so long ago, get over it. Like, nah, that everything that you do, whether it's me taking this, post it and throwing it across the room, or the institution of slavery, everything has a cause and effect.
Right.
And the longer and the deeper that something goes on, or the more significant the event, the longer those ripple effects are going to last. And so when you break down a group of people and you strip them of their language, you strip them of their culture, you strip them of their humanity, and this is what people have to really understand. I mean, I have on my desktop, on my computer, I mean, it's not the screensaver, but I have a picture of an auction for slaves, and it's talking about, all right, we have this strong man who can do this and this for you, and you have this woman who can cook and clean and all this kind of stuff, and you realize, like listen, slaves were basically the equivalent of selling a cow, selling a rake, selling a shovel, selling a hoe. I mean, like the garden tool hoe.
I'm asking about that. I was asking about that a little bit though. We gonna talk about that.
But so when you think about psychologically what that does to the person who's been sold or who's being sold, and to the people who are doing the selling, who are doing the management of these people, it is a literal dehumanization of people. And when you think about that dehumanization of our people, there has never been an equal effort to restore the humanity of our people. And so, and that's what people don't take into consideration. This happened for a very long time, and the United States has never done anything to restore us as a people. And so,
they was even talking about like they probably suffer from PTSD, and that got passed on in your genetics and DNA.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. 100%. That is 100% accurate. And so, and that in addition to all kinds of other, political, economic, social conditions, have led to, again, that whole thing where, we're fighting against ourselves. We don't see each other as who we are, brothers and sisters. And so unless and until that restoration happens, I mean, mind you, there's going to be crime wherever there's going to be crime. There's always going to be crime, but this whole thing in terms of the infighting and the cheapness of life that we have collectively, that's what needs to be healed, and it's not like just on, I mean, it is on a one-on-one level, us teaching and us being able to see that value and recognizing us as the kings and queens that we are, in order to get over that. But it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of special people, and it's going to take the grace of God for that to occur. But the United States also has an obligation to do what it needs to do to right those wrongs. And a lot of these private corporations who have profited very handsomely from the slave trade, there are a ton of companies that exist today that are backed by that original money. So they need to make this right, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, then speaking of, I was gonna ask you about cannabis now, because like especially in California, even recreational is legal now. But I always look at like, so what about all these people that went to jail over it? Now they even got legal like cannabis stocks and all that stuff. And then that girl, how the Olympics, I'm like, man, so people be like, that's the rule. I was like, shit. being a slave used to be the rule. I'm
Right,
like,
right.
my whole thing is I understand rules, but I'm a man before any rule. If I break a rule, if I want to break a rule, I'll break a rule and deal with it. Like I'm not like, oh, that's the rule. Like no. Some people
Yeah.
scared like that. I'm like, man.
This is a book, and at a certain point in time, it was against the law
Right.
for a black person to read a book. That
But
was
people
the
still read
rule.
it, right? They still read
That
it,
was
right?
Yeah, to your point, you know what I mean? And so we can't just always be like, oh, well, them's the rules, those are the rules. You know, and going back to the first thing, you know, I'm glad that the law is finally catching up with the times in terms of, you know, what it should be. This should have been legalized a long time ago. Obviously, federal law is still lagging behind, but at least in California, there's been changes. A lot of the what used to be felonies have been reduced to misdemeanors, not crimes anymore. And there are vehicles for people to go back and have convictions modified and all that kind of stuff. But you know, to your other point in terms of, you know, a lot of people still, you know, rotting in jail for things that are now corporate. You see all these dispensaries that are profiting handsomely, you know, millions, if not $1 billion industry, you know, that has landed people in 10, you know, prison 10, 12, 20, however many years. And that's really hit the black and brown community in a major way, And the ironic thing is, you know, and it's been said so many times before, listen, we don't own the planes, we don't own the boats, you know, we don't own any of the machinery that was involved in, you know, cultivating this stuff and bringing it into our communities. But yet, you know, it's us that ends up feeling the effects of these laws and these policies. And so, you know, that's another wrong that needs to be corrected. You know, there's a lot, you know, and the disparate treatment is historic in terms of how you know, black and brown people were policed, prosecuted, and sentenced as compared to our white counterparts. And these are a lot of things that need to be corrected. That was actually one of my motivations for, you know, going to law school, when I saw that you know, you would get, and I don't even remember what the numbers were, but it was basically the comparison of, you know, 5 grams of crack to, you know, to 500 grams of powder cocaine, in terms of what the comparison of those sentences is. And everybody knows, you know, where the cocaine was at. You know, the cocaine was in the, you know, upper class, you know, white areas. And, you know, you had crack in the hood. And, you know, black people, you know, that was a huge thing in the 80s. You know what I mean?
It's sad because and the only difference is adding baking soda and cooking it, and that's the only difference, right? So what the hell? They trying to run game,
That's all it is. And so you know, and that really decimated our communities in major ways. You know, to not even speak of the reasons for which people had to you know, took the drugs. And so I've had this conversation with folks, and they're like, oh, well, you know, people just want to party and do drugs. I'm like, well, you don't understand, man. When there's lack of hope, when there's lack of opportunity, when there's lack of jobs, you know, when people are impoverished, and they need a release, you know, they don't have therapists, you know what I'm saying? They don't have, you know, they don't have people who can, you know, help them deal with these problems. So it's very easy to then turn to the pusher man, you know, who can, you know, offer you this escape from this, you know, difficult life that you're living, and really be able to have that bliss or that ecstasy for a little while. And so, but once it turned to pills, and once it started hitting, you know, once you started getting the social economic totem pole, and it started hitting those communities, that's when it became, oh, well, we really need to look at this and see, you know, why people are turning to drugs. Like, you know, what do we need to do? And so, you know, man, it's one of those things where the more you know, the more you know, sometimes the more you wish you didn't know.
Yeah, it's like don't they got like opioid centers and stuff where they can just walk in now? Yeah.
There are treatment facilities and rehab and a lot of times like that ends up being, if once they get to the criminal side, if they do, where that's, alternatives to custody, where they've, finally recognized that, putting somebody in jail, putting somebody in prison for a drug addiction, no matter what it is not what needs to happen. That person needs to be, they need treatment. They need, to overcome the addiction, and that's not going to happen being locked up in custody. And so I'm very glad that the law is finally catching up in that sense. But there's a lot of harm that's been done that can never be undone, and harms that'll take lifetimes to correct and get over. But yeah, man, that the way the law has been modified, manipulated, in order to continue on the oppression of Black people was in part one of the reasons why I ended up becoming an attorney. And so that was, just seeing, that it didn't stop with slavery. There was Jim Crow, and there were the Black codes, and all kinds of things that people, the government and people were able to use in order to keep us as second, third, fourth class, whatever you want to call us, citizens. And so it was very upsetting to know that that's how the law was able to be used to continue the oppression and everything.
And then another thing I think will help us out if they make it, they should be legal, is sex work. I feel like if somebody want to go have sex and pay for it, that shit should be, what's wrong with that? Like, shit, the way they got it now is the problem. They should just make it legal and make it safe where they can do it, because it's like it's not going nowhere. People
right.
Gonna keep doing it.
People are gonna do it. That's the thing. Like people are gonna be people. People are gonna do what they want to do. When you have, and this is the issue of when you bring the Bible into, that's why we have the separation of church and state. And if we as a people, or if the government is able to see, like, listen, this is going to go on, why don't we have it legal to where we can have, where it can be safe, where they provide the condoms and testing and whatever else needs to be provided. It can be a safe environment to where people aren't getting murdered and because black market, backdoor steal type of stuff. Which was the same argument in terms of legalizing all drugs. Having it, and that gets into a whole nother conversation in terms of the money and and everything. But yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I don't think that religious beliefs should ultimately play a role in whether that gets done or not, because at the end of the day, you can say, listen, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to do it. At the end of the day, God knows, God knows things is gonna go down. God knows.
It's crazy because it's like they arrest all the tricks for just, and then like some of them dudes might have disabilities and they can't get a girl. They need something, because I think like if dudes have sex, that shit like help you out than just not having sex for a long ass time. That's probably what go crazy. And then they be arresting the pimps. But it's like, shit, the pimps gotta help the girls. Like, they can't be out there by themselves. So it's like, shit. That's what I'm saying. They should just make it like, but then I'm like confused. So why do they let people do the bunny ranch and shit? But they don't.
Yeah. No, you make some valid points. And so we'll see. I feel like that's one that's gonna take a while. And realistically, I mean, when it comes to the rights of black people, that
you know what I heard about that? They said basically like pimping actually started like after slavery, and it was like because the white dudes wanted to see the black women and they started pimping, so then they made it illegal because the black men kept making so much money off of it, so then they made it illegal.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
that documentary American Pimp. They was talking about that. They was talking about how it came up.
Oh, okay.
But I said we
Makes
about to
sense.
wrap. I said we're gonna wrap it up soon, but I forgot to ask you about your top 5.
Woo, man, I feel like my top 5, top 10 fluctuates. It constantly changes, but the three that never change is Jay-Z, Biggie, and Nas. Those are the goats, those are the gods. Once you get out of that, I feel like 4 through 10. There's a lot of interchangeable artists, but you got to have Rakim in there. You can even have Big L. I mean, and actually, sometimes they fall in, fall out. I could throw Black Thought in there. I don't know that anybody will ever be able to duplicate or top that freestyle that he dropped. It was like a 10-minute freestyle of and nothing was, there were no useless bars. I mean, that's Black Thought is a god amongst men when it comes to MCing. But yeah, I mean that there's 5 right there: Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, Rakim, Big L.
So what you listening to now? You ain't named no, you named like kind of older cats. What you listening to now?
Yeah. I don't listen to a whole lot of new music. That J. Cole, I had that on heavy rotation. I've been listening to a lot of Griselda. That's my stuff right there. Conway the Machine. I'm blown away by the sheer volume of excellent music that he's putting out. Benny the Butcher, West Side Gun. They're doing their thing. Let's see who I've listened to. Evidence dropped an album recently, so I kind of tracked through a couple of those. I listened to that DMX album. And Griselda showed up on there, man. They murdered that track that they had with them. I was hoping for more with that album, but rest in peace to DMX. There were some highlights on there, but for the most part, man, I really listen to a lot of old stuff. Like one issue that I have is and listen to some underground stuff as well. But I don't like how there's a huge lack of individuality in the game today. You know what I mean? Like I'll play stuff because I'm a DJ for a semi-pro basketball team, the San Diego Guardians, and I'm 41, but a lot of these players, they're early mid 20s, and so obviously there's a a disconnect. Yeah. The one of the first games that I played. I was in my bag, man. I was playing, Redman and Method Man, Wu-Tang, Dub C, Ice Cube. I was all over the place in the 90s, and one of these cats came up and they was like, "Yo, man, can you play some new stuff?" I was like, "Oh man," but yeah, man, a lot of that stuff, it all just sounds the same to me, man. So it's difficult, because that is an era where you couldn't just be sounding like everybody else. You had to have your own individual style, and a lot of these cats just like, I don't know the difference between this artist from this artist from this artist. I just I got a lot of them tracks in my Serato, and I'll play them because they fit into the BPM or the vibe, but I couldn't tell you who it is. I mean, there's no distinctive qualities as between them. But in terms of the leaders of that of this new era, your Drakes, your Kendrick Lamar, your J. Cole. I mean, those are my dudes. Let's see, Travis Scott. I like Travis Scott's production. He's always dope with the production. And I don't know if you've seen his shows, but man, this dude, like his shows are like rock star shows. You would think the crowd was like, you would think it was U2 playing or or the Rolling Stones or something. The way dude has crowds, and that's fascinating. But he's doing his thing.
I like that song he got with Drake.
What's that?
The one he got with Drake, the Sicko Mode.
Oh yeah, man. That intro, I love that intro. Anything that's got an organ in it. Oh man, you got it. Yeah. There's just something about that old, church organ that just touched my soul. You know what I'm saying?
So you got any as far as your current projects, like any shows, anything coming up?
Oh man, I got some weddings lined up. I just did one of my boys. He had a photographic art show. My boy Arash Afshar, and so I did the kickoff party for that. Things have been kind of slow, on the DJing end, just because I'm trying to, kind of just get my bearings under me in terms of coming back from this pandemic. It's been kind of crazy. So I'm a little hesitant to jump right back into playing regularly. So it's been a little slow, but eventually we'll get back into it. We'll get back into it.
You didn't do like all the other DJs?
What's that?
They jumped on Twitch.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that, man. I didn't jump on that wave. For me, I really like to play off the energy of people. I'm one of them DJs that be dancing behind the turntables and everything, and it's difficult when you're playing into a camera. Even though and I did a couple things on Facebook and everything, but when you're just playing in the camera and you see comments and all that kind of stuff, it's not enough to see flames and heart emojis. I need that interaction, that energy from the people. And even if it's a house party, man, that's one of my favorite things to do. Just a house party, because realistically, when it comes to DJing, man, that's what my introduction to DJing was. You know what I'm saying? Seeing the house parties and movies, house party.
I would say, when you quit fucking the table, man. Play something.
Exactly. So
Chill,
I know. Yeah.
I realized his name was actually Chill too. His real name was Chill. I was like, oh shit.
But yeah, man. So I know DJing has blown up and become this whole thing where you got the lights and smoke and all this kind of craziness, but and I know that's more on the like EDM side of things, but when it comes to hip hop, man, that house party, that intimate feel, and obviously at a private party you could do more things than you could do at a night spot where they're really looking at you, making sure you play what they want you to play. So I like having that freedom, of just doing, a little small gig. So looking forward to doing more stuff like that, kind of creating my own space, realizing the power of social media and marketing with that. I know that there's a lot of people craving that versus, just that normal stuff that you get when you go to the normal night spot. So we'll see. Look out for that.
What you got? You gonna do some Rick Scales?
Man, I'd love to collab with Rick Scales. We'll see. I know he's been grinding. He's got some show dates coming up. I was supposed to do actually right before the pandemic happened. We were supposed to do the slapping hands, though they were doing slapping hands at Bar Pink. What's that?
He doing it already again. He started.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like I was gonna play at one of them, and then their audio went out or something, like the speaker system shut down. It was all bad, but yeah, man. I'm definitely open to collabing with whoever I can and supporting whoever I can. I DJ'd for Rick Scales, I think a couple times actually at this point, when he's been rapping. So. DJing for the homies, that's something that I love doing. Anytime I can get behind the ones and twos and make folks smile, make folks dance, make people forget about their trouble, forget about their problems, and just be able to bob their head, same way I was doing with the intro, man. There's just something special about that, man. The power of music is a beautiful thing, and I love being a part of that.
I said, yeah, I'm supposed to be interviewing Rick on Monday.
Word.
So yeah, that's probably like I think I interviewed him like 3 or 4 times. We had this indie rap battle. He was in it. He almost won, but he lost in the finals one time. We had like 3 tournaments, and he was the finals of one of them. Yeah.
So that's a gifted MC, man. That's one thing. Like I actually, commented on one of his posts the other day, and I said, listen, I don't throw out the title MC lightly, but you're a true MC, and that dude, just more people deserve to hear that brother's art, man.
That's what's up. So what would you like to say to your supporters?
Man, just thank you is really what I'd love to say. First and foremost, man, I posted the other day about how, I've taken I fought my way into the law. I've taken an unconventional route. A lot of the people that I see around me as my colleagues, my contemporaries, they don't look like me. They don't sound like me. They don't have my same story, but I'm here. I'm here and I'm doing it my way. But I couldn't do it without the support of the community. So I just want to thank everybody for recommending me to folks when people are facing criminal charges or deportation or something like that. It's the worst thing that they ever had to face. It's the worst thing, probably the worst problem that they ever have to go through. The idea of losing your privilege of being in this country, or losing your freedom, or losing your job, or whatever the effects could be from, being convicted. And so to have people, call to me to help them with that situation is an honor and a blessing. And so, I want to thank everybody and, encourage people to follow me. If you can support me, I'm at Jamahl Kersey. So you have the spelling of my name. And that's, it's at Jamahl Kersey on Twitter, on Instagram, Jamahl Kersey on Facebook. So that's where you can find me. And then on the other side, on the music tip, man, I'll be posting stuff when I'm playing. So, if you want to come out and you want to see somebody really get down, somebody who's going to make you move, somebody's going to bring back tracks that you forgot years ago, but bring them back, and that brings that old feeling back, then that's me, man. Because whatever I do, whether it's the law, whether it's music, I come at it 100%, man. I'm a hustler, I'm a grinder, and I'm a performer, and so that's what I do, man.
I want to say thanks for coming through politicking with me.
Thank you, man. It was a blessing. We'll have to do it again sometime.
And no doubt, man, for sure.
All right, brother.